Welcome back to the Resonant State. All right. All right. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to the Resonant State. And we've been developing various topics, primarily related to current events in America, etc. But I would like to begin, which will hopefully be a type of a new series here, on something known as a conception of social safety, which is a very broad topic. We could say this is a comprehensive rethinking of the entire paradigm that we've been operating under for the past, I would even say, several thousand years in general. And so, while some of this is, you could say, uniquely Russian, I think it's really applicable to the entirety of humanity. And so I think this is an extremely important topic. And I actually encountered this material off a YouTube channel, the Russian, called Russian View. And you make sure you find the right Russian View because there's a number of channels out there, but there's this one in particular. And these guys that I'm joined with today are the Russian View team, who have been doing really excellent work in presenting this material and also translating this whole. There's a pretty large library of text also that are available. And without any further ado, let me introduce Cyan and Andrew from the Russian View team. And in this first initial foray, I think we'll just kind of discuss, maybe an overview, a history, whatever you guys feel comfortable with. But let's dive in, and assuming that pretty much no one except for me that on this knows anything about this subject. So let's go ahead and whoever wants to start first, go ahead.
Okay, then I'll start. First of all, I'll just present us a little bit more, a little bit more detail. So the first thing that should be said is that I'm a native English speaker, and Andrei is a native Russian speaker. So this was our, we became a translation team. So I'll talk immediately about the conception of social safety. I'll start with the part that really got me interested, the fact that the collective of authors who wrote this, first of all, that it's a collective. Um, so what happened was in the late 80s, a group of people of different professions from different fields of work realized that the Soviet Union was about to collapse. And these are guys from, these are philosophers, these are scientists, these are people in the military, these are people from all different fields, and they got together with a certain goal. And the goal was to find out the problems that had led to this crisis and to offer up an alternative. So it's all very simple. For me, this was very striking because, and later I wondered why. Why is this so striking to me? This is because in general, in our world, in the West, the only time a collective of different professionals gets together is to make a new bomb or to develop a better way of controlling the crowd, for example. So these guys got together with the objective already initially of helping humanity. So this is the initial thing that got me interested. Um, as for what it is, um, um, maybe I can ask Andrei to step in here for me, if that's okay, because Andrei, maybe you can take it away from here,
Oh, yeah.
if it's okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's absolutely fine. Yeah. So this basically, as Hans said already, that's the comprehensive knowledge covering basically every topic, every field, uh, not in huge detail. If you speak about every field, not in huge detail, but still, that's the basically methodological uh, tool using which you can yourself cognize the world. That's the main thing. And if necessary, to create knowledge from scratch, new knowledge from scratch. And that's the methodological, basically tool, instrument that you can learn to use. That's the main thing. This is the, so you can read any book, understanding the defaults, understanding what is not basically said or what is hidden or what is hushed up or whatever. The objectives of this book, right? Even though the real authors might not understand, and so on. So that's the basic knowledge. This is the methodology. This is not a collection of facts, as it's usually any book you take it as a collection of facts. But that's something else. And I think you, Hans, while reading, you got it right. That's something else. This is not just a collection of facts.
Something new.
Yeah, well, the one thing to state is that this is material in a certain way. Um, I play sitar, as probably people know, and so sitar is one of those musics that the audience has to come to the music, right? It's not
Mhm.
out there pushing itself on people. You have to step into this field. You have to make a conscious decision because there's a lot of repetition, not only in terms of information that's sort of floating around quote unquote alternative media sources, mainstream media, a lot of repetition in political events, a lot of repetition in similar narrative paradigms, whether it's in science, whether it's in psychology, especially, whether it's in any field. And so, one of the really fascinating things about the conceptual social safety is, as Cyan mentioned, is that this was a collective of authors, but people that are in, you could say, positions of responsibility, right? They're not
Mhm.
just, armchair philosophers per se. Many of these people
Mhm.
are connected with universities and things like that. But so this is in a sense, this is a not generating, facts themselves without the connecting point can actually lead to incomprehension, right? That's one of the things
Yeah.
people misunderstand is it's just a fact. If you have all these facts, that itself can create a type of array of confusion, right? And so this presents a rethinking of what is described as the conceptual power, right? Of you look at the power pyramid, we'll get into that. This is a rethinking of the entire conceptual matrix and
Mhm.
allowing each individual to find their own way into that.
So basically, I'll just add there that the collective of authors was connected as well with the people. This is because this collective of authors were educated in Soviet times when simple people were allowed to receive a very high quality education. So generally, this is also something new for us in the West. Generally, people with high education, professors, scientists, and all these kinds of things, if they are in positions of power, they've kind of been allowed there already. They've kind of been let through certain doors. And if they've been let through these certain doors, this means they are of a certain mindset which is acceptable. So again, acceptable to the dominant conception, or like you said, the dominant paradigm. So that makes this also an exception because of the fact that these guys were all from the people. So they didn't have any elitarian interests. They didn't have any kind of pretensions to become incredibly rich or to gain power, right? So this already speaks to their intentions. Um, and then I'll go back to the fact that they came together with a certain objective, and to make it very simple. Again, it was to understand this crisis. So what has gone wrong here? How have we come to this? Right? This means this if they really are going to do a good job of this, this means they have to go deep into history. They can't just overthrow the government and put a new government in, because the problem is of course systemic. So the new government will just act according to the same principles that the previous one acted. So if you really want to come to the bottom of these problems, you have to go into history. That's one point. But maybe the most simple point to understand and the deepest point to understand is that every crisis that we can see in society today, whether it's economic, whether it's ecological, whatever it might be, it all starts in our heads. And this is a point that they came to as well. It all starts in our heads. In what way? It starts in our heads in the sense that if we accept, and this is also a very important thing to emphasize, because not everybody accepts this, even though they might say so. I know that I previously, being a kind of a product of my culture, didn't accept this, that there is objective reality, and then there is us and our subjective perception of reality, right? If we accept this as a kind of starting point, then we can say that if we perceive objective reality correctly, then we will act in objective reality correctly, and the results of our activity will be good. We will look at them and we will say we like these results. So if we look at today's world as a set of results of previous activity, which was based on a certain perception of reality, right? Then we can say the results are not good. I think that anyone would agree with this. And whoever doesn't, this is okay. These materials are not really for them. But if you do agree, you don't like it, then these materials are meant for you. So yeah, so they came to this point, and the really good thing about these books is that they, if you really read into them, then you have to ask yourself how you see the world. How do I perceive the world? Maybe it's incorrect, right? If you take on the responsibility that it all starts in our head, therefore one of those heads is my head. How do I see the world? And it gives you, it doesn't just put you before this question, it gives you the tools and the, first of all, the encouragement and then the tools to be able to do that. So that's an amazing thing that I found personally on myself. Hans, I don't know about you, if you came to such conclusions in terms of the worldview aspect of it.
Well, I think it's very important in that one of the issues we have is this blurring of the denial of any type of objective reality. In fact, right, there is
Mm-hmm.
nothing that's objective. There's various, you can look at, say, in physics, you have all these different principles. You have the uncertainty principle. We can go to the most extreme is postmodernism, where you decide your own body. You can change your body.
Mm-hmm.
You can change this. But on the other side, United States, we are facing a real crisis of identity. In a certain way, it's kind of mirroring a little bit the stage, maybe not quite as dire as before the sort of fall of the Soviet system, and then of course you have all the Harvard guys coming in and doing all their rapacious wealth grabbing. But in a certain way, United States is not what it was, right? This, instead of being afraid of that, instead of saying what's going to happen to us, what can you do personally, and how can we change this direction, right? Because the
Mm-hmm.
current direction is obviously not sustainable. And this disconnection from any even measure of objective reality, right? Any even allowing that into existence in the conceptual framing requires, I mean, it makes life easier if you think there's nothing objective, right? Or it's just, you can create and live in a very small bubble, right? Whether you could be a billionaire and you're still living in that
Mm-hmm.
bubble, right? And so in a sense, and I'll say absolutely, I've one thing that I have noticed for sure is that objective reality means you can approach the circumstances you have without any fear, but then also you have to be cognizant, right? There are, especially once you, we won't get into this today, but once you move, there's a American expression, you go off the reservation, right? You go away
Mm-hmm.
from that, the bounded, the given to you bounded worldview, you could say. you're
Mm-hmm.
going to you may encounter various things. You might find out that people you thought were your friends are actually your enemies, right? They're working against you. They're doing things. And so one thing I've said, I encountered all kinds of these circumstances and situations, yet in all these things, even in the past month, where I had a fire, part of my house, a garage burned down, I'm doing all this stuff, but everything actually has worked out for the best, even including, we had
Yeah.
this huge festival, just my wife and I, and how are we going to pull this off? It was a massive success. We had people coming from all over the country, even internationally, because we kept our intention in this particular stream. We'll get that far. But the fact is that when you start to engage in real world life, right, with this set of tools, you will get and start achieving results that you thought perhaps were not possible. But you
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to do the work, which not everybody wants to do. Not everybody wants to acknowledge that. And not everybody is willing to step back and say, wait, what is actually going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would add also about the objective laws, because the objective reality is not just objective reality. It has its objective laws and generated not by people. And basically, the conception of social safety overall, right, is the uh, comprehensive knowledge of cognizing these objective laws. That's basically the main thing,
Mm-hmm.
because we are under these objective laws, hierarchically speaking. So, which means that we have to attune our lives, attune our worldview to them, and not them to us. So, when we say there is no objective reality, everything is subjective, it depends how you look at it, then you basically free yourself of the responsibility for the world, for your life, and for your predestination, basically. So that's the main. This is one of the main things. Um, is the how to correspond to the objective laws, and that's very important, because if you follow them, the life basically flows easy, kind of, right? So you don't have
Mm-hmm.
problems. You have challenges, but that's for your development. But you don't have problems which stop you, which you know hinder your development, and so on. That's very important thing. This is also one of those things that
Ye-
you can take from the conception.
Yes, I will confirm this as someone who came to the conception as a Westerner from the outside. Uh, when it comes to objective laws, there might be recognized some physical objective laws in our let's say in our conception, in the Western conception, physical objective laws like gravity, but that's about it. What the conception also offers is a set of objective laws which we all know exist, and I think that unconsciously have been waiting for someone to come along and outline, someone like this. Basically, we've been waiting for this, I would say. So there also exist not only physical objective laws, there exist ethical objective laws. There exist governorial objective laws, as well as there's a whole set of objective laws which is very, very nicely outlined in the conception. And here I can talk about a new point. Um, a lot of people might perceive this information as something to either be believed blindly or to be rejected. This is again a kind of a stereotype of perception that we have. When I say we, I mean our culture teaches us to. Um, if you give us information, we want to know, okay, so where's your PhD? What university did you go to? Are you recognized? Have you been on Joe Rogan, or you know what I mean? So we have this kind of idea of authority, basically. And if someone comes with new revelationary information, something that's completely new and which something which challenges our worldview, that deeply. We take it like that. However, even in the conception itself, the call is for you for you yourself to take the material, check it in life, check it on yourself. And this is actually what is necessary in order for people to become humans, to creatively cognize the world themselves and come to these conclusions. Maybe not exactly these conclusions, but they can test them, they can check them on themselves. That's the beauty of this system of knowledge as well.
Absolutely. And I I do see that there is a sort of you could say three directions people go into, right? Generally speaking, one of them being just complete hedonism, pleasure, right? Just focusing on that. Other one is, you know, which is probably much more rare, but control, power, this and that. And then another one is people go, well, I want to find some deeper meaning, higher truth, which is spiritual meaning, however you want to phrase that. And there's a lot of, I think, misunderstanding in this aspect of the fact that many consider that you have to withdraw from the world, right? From the world of the
Yes.
senses, from the physical plane you're in, from your life. You have to just go inside. You go live in a cave. You meditate all day,
Yes.
and there's a lot of things, consciousness expansion, whether through there's a lot of newer books out on meditation and talking about it's like you have your own pharmacopoeia in your brain. So you want to trigger the state of ecstasy, you want to trigger your cannabinoid receptors, you want to trigger types of hallucinations or type whatever. So I mean, there's books like that, which, and then you can trace this back earlier, but literally looking at the brain. Well, I want to get this state of mind. I want to do this meditation practice, or people doing, going on these retreats and taking lots of psychedelic drugs, and I have this spiritual perspective. I'm expanding my consciousness, but come back to the actual state where what are you actually doing in your life, right? And so I think that you can say the quest for just pleasure, the quest for wealth and power, or the this sort of you want to transcend or go to a higher state. And we could also add just the quest just to be comfortable and not be challenged, or even to wallow in your problems, in your victimhood. This is also a big issue, right? But to me, these are all, I think these are countered through this very unique conceptual, maybe revolution is the wrong word, but I think it is. These are definitely revolutionary ideas.
So yeah, I think that people want to run away. They want to go and live in a forest. They want to build their own cabin. That's one option. Other people want to, as you said, they want to take some drugs, have a spiritual experience. Another option. Other people go off and make a lot of money. That's another option. Other people pick up a bottle. That's another option. Other people live a life of quiet desperation, as it was. I can't remember who had this quote, where they go to the office and they come back and they are depressed. That's another option. And all these so-called options, right? Basically, these are people who believe, not maybe consciously, in fact, many of them probably unconsciously, that this is the only way that we can be. We can only be like this. This is how we are. Because if you sit any of these guys down and you really start to ask them questions and they start to answer, most of them will come to the realization that they look at humans as being, this is human nature. We have these instincts, and that's all we are. We are only instincts. We can only be monkeys. This is one stereotype that we have, which hangs over us. It gives us depression. That's one. The other one is that the universe is pointless, right? Because we have basically two authorities: science and religion. If we take all spirituality, self-help, all these things, and put it under the word religion. And on the other side, we have science. So this is all fields, right? And basically, they both say the same thing, but in different ways. Science says entropy. There's no point, it says all that you do is leading to nothing. Everything's going to explode. The sun's going to not be here one day. Really, there's no point at the end of the day. And religion says you are originally sinful. This is Christianity, which is very deeply entrenched in our culture, even in atheists or those who have turned away from the Bible. As I've noticed, this is an observation. We are originally sinful, and that means we will have an apocalypse. If you take this into the language of Freudianism, it's the same thing, but just not in biblical terms. Humans are instincts. We are full of fears, and we need to be controlled. We are a mob of monkeys and all these kinds of things. So I know personally on myself, as being born in this culture, that this cloud certainly hung over me for many years. I didn't even know that it was hanging over me because that was all I knew. So for many of these guys, that's the only reality that they know. And the only option is to go running into the woods. So again, to return to this system of knowledge, they offer something else. They say that we can build. It seems to be obvious when I say it now. It seems to be to the point of that it's funny. Hey, it's like, hey guys, if you don't like where you're living, how about let's get together and build a better place that we all like? And it seems even funny now, but we do think that's impossible in our paradigm. So that's another great thing about this system of knowledge. Not only does it offer it in the words that I'm saying now, but it bases it. It bases, it finds the root of the problems, and then offers an alternative at the root in terms of worldview, from which it develops its knowledge into all aspects of life. This includes psychology, this includes religion, this includes philosophy, economics, this includes jurisprudence, all branches. If we look at it like a tree, the roots is the worldview, and then it moves into the branches, which will be the systems, well, the fields of life activity, basically. And it offers concrete alternatives, which are not to be followed blindly, but to be cognized by the reader. And this in itself, for me personally, was an incredibly hopeful thing, which helped me to move out of that cloud that I spoke about a little bit earlier. Yeah, no.
What also said about the fact that this comprehensive knowledge is of a extra systemic character. That's a very important thing. And extra systemic, not in relation to the just to our culture, which means it's just different, maybe conspirological or something. No, no, no. It's extra systemic because our culture is not enough, is not sufficient in order to understand the objective reality as it is. So that's why this knowledge, as a collective attempt to understand the objective reality, goes beyond the almost all the existing cultures of the world. That's the main thing, and it is extra systemic to the measure of understanding of the objective reality by the collective of authors at the time of writing. That does not mean that this is the ultimate point, and nothing could be written better. It's just the point is that at this point, that might be basically
Sufficient, basically.
let's say almost the most useful books today, in my opinion. Most
And
useful.
I would agree with that here.
Yeah, and it's important to recognize that many of if these systems worked right, we would not be in this particular placement that we're in,
Yes.
right? And this is, and you mentioned these are very important fundamental views, right? You can look at Nietzsche, right? Of course, brought this up at the turn of the 19th century, nihilism, right? Nihilism, European crisis of nihilism. And nihilism is a very, very deep thing. It's a very deep tunnel, right? In fact, you can see modern physics, entropy. This is taking the form of nihilism, is it not? So this nihilism creates almost a feeling of terror at the ground. The other side is, which many people incorporate, this is all Maya, right? This is illusory.
Yeah.
Nothing exists around. It's all just, created by your mind. Well, obviously, your subjective, what your senses are taking in, it is subjectively interpreted, but that's the thing. Like, if you want to say, oh, this is all illusory, well then, make the sun rise and set, change the road system. Who's gonna, and then you get this thing, well, who's gonna run the water system, who's gonna run the sewer system, who's gonna pick up the trash, who's gonna organize a society? So there's different states of resonance, you could say, along these things. Yes, on a certain level, all the material world is forms of energetic manifestation, and that does you could say, go beyond the normal sensory input that we take as material reality. But that doesn't mean that this level is not real, right? So some of this maybe gets a little bit tricky, but I think that extra systemic point is very important, because in a sense we do have this crisis you could describe as nihilism, right? Or else, all the psychology, and so some of these, as we get into it, like some of the stuff I had to come to my own understandings. It's just cut it, right? You don't need that. Like, someone says, oh, I'm depressed. What does that mean? You're depressed. You're depressed. Why? What is the actual state you're in right now? How is that state maintaining continuity? What are the correlates of that state? Do you have enough will to actually see what's happening and say, I'm not depressed. This is either a message that you need to change something in your life, then heed the message and make the changes in your life. Or it's, maybe it's diet, maybe you're living in a narrative and now you have an excuse not to live, or whatever it may be. Cut it. Just cut it. Stop it. Right. That's, and just one of the, before I'll let you guys come back, is that one of the things I've encountered is a lot of people encounter that they're in these, I would describe as narrative structures of limitations, where, well, this person did that to me, or all this stuff. Oh, my parents are really bad. My mom, I'm, I'm 40 years old, I'm 30 years old, I'm 60 years old, and my mom or my dad, and I'm still dealing with all this trauma from growing up. I mean, people just in these kind of things, or, this person cheated me, my business partner, and I had, and you can't, or my wife left me, whatever. These things, people will be stuck in these cycles, and they'll go around and go around and go around without going to the root cause. And that's one of the things people are talking about, these mental health crises, right? Look at the amount of mass shootings in the United States that are coming. Every day there's another mass shooting. So is this psychological? Is this system of therapy either medicalizing, diagnosing, whatever? Is this helping people? Doesn't seem like it, right? So we really need something new. And again, unfortunately, a lot of these messages are relayed, say, through movies, through television shows, through things like that. One of the things, and again, this is a view from the United States, from my own view, is you see a lot of these shows where people have these emotional breakdowns or emotional outbursts, right? They have no regulation. And this is normalized. And in fact, it's seen as almost heroic. Oh, I'm going to make this huge scene in a restaurant. I'll flip the table over. I'm so real, I mean, and so you get these people enacting on these things, and then these create, we'll get into this later, collective types of energetics that are very destructive and very, very toxic. And in fact, not only toxic to human life, but I think toxic to the ecosystem, etc. So I'll leave it there, but yeah.
Yeah. So
that's the. Mhm.
please. Okay. To the point. So I'll address the mental health things, but to the point of Maya, just a quick a quick thing. Even if even if it is an illusion, let's say, it's still here, and there are still objective laws by which we all have to live, even if it's a so-called illusion. This question is inconsequential as to our lives here, as to how we build our lives here, for everyday life, and for transferring this everyday life into the stream of eternity. This is inconsequential. Um, yeah. Andre, you wanted to say something
Yeah,
about
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. About the um, illusion. When they say, "Oh, that's all illusion," what is illusion then? That's a very important question, by the way. Everyone understands it as if self-evident. That's as if self-evident. Illusion is nothing exists. But then, why you? I don't know why you eat every day then. Why you meditate
Yeah.
every day if everything is illusion? And then what's illusion then again? So that's all these questions and all these little modules of worldview already say that these people are in illusion and moreover in delusion. That's the main thing. So if the objective reality exists, we can't deny that fact. And you might not agree with this, but it's your problem. You might like it or not, but it's your problem. The point is that uh, if you want to uh, be happy, and everyone will say, "Yes, I want to be happy." Even those guys who say that the world is illusion, they would also say, "I want to be happy." So if you want to be happy, then you have to correspond to the objective reality, right? Your subjectivism should be as much as possible even to the objective reality. That's the main thing. But in order to get there, you have to be brave enough in order to see and to face the truth as it is. That's a big problem because people are weak, spiritually weak. You know, they can't say that actually there is a piece of their own responsibility in the fact that the wife left them or that their partner cheated them or whatever. So on this fact, this is the victimhood, as you said before. So this is spiritual victimhood. I'm a victim. Someone left me. My mood is bad. That's not me, and so on. So and that's the problem is that these things uh, can be changed or can be fixed only starting from the point when you can really say, "All right, I am piece of shit," and that's where we start. I am a big piece of shit, and I have to admit it, but not too much. So as it actually is. So not to say that you're, immense piece, but just to say that, okay, I'm wrong here. That's because I did something wrong. And if I don't want to have this problem anymore, I have to change something mm, in rethinking the objective reality. Changing my views on it. Only then, yes, this you must be brave because you will face the
Yes.
pain inside, and you have to endure this pain. But it's fine. It's the same as you go to you visit a doctor, and you might feel pain. That's fine. But after that, you will feel better, right? So this is the same thing. So you just have to face the objective truth about yourself, and that's really, really difficult for people, as I've noticed. And it's actually I never thought it's so difficult for people as it actually turned out to be. But that's the main thing. People don't want to know the truth. And it's actually this idea you can see in many places, in many movies, in many books. But, people think about something else, but not about themselves. Oh, they're fine, they're perfect. Everything's fine. It's just my wife is not good, or my partner, or my job is not good, or something else. Whatever. That's what I wanted to say.
Yes, I would just first of all agree absolutely, and to say that it's quite a paradox that the remedy for being a victim, which is what Andres is saying basically, that it's everyone else's fault except mine, because it's too painful to take responsibility, because taking responsibility is equal to basically death, rejection, abandonment. To say that you are again a piece of shit. I hope that it's okay that we're swearing on your podcast like that.
It's all right. No problem.
Uh, and it's just a paradox of life that the remedy for victimhood is taking responsibility for who you are. I will also add that in our culture we don't have any reason. We don't have any. If there's no point in the world, if we're going to apocalypse, if we're going to entropy, if people are just like this, that's a huge victim. That's like a big spirit of victimhood. Oh, we were kind of just born into these circumstances, and like why is it so bad for us? And even if good people can get derailed all the time, that's another thing. We have this idea that people who are truly good, so in the language that we're speaking in this podcast, those who truly correspond to objective reality, let's say, can be derailed by that same objective reality just randomly. This is also, as you were talking about movies earlier, this is also time and time again shown in movies. Guy's a good guy, he takes responsibility for himself, his life, and he just dies out of nowhere. He falls, he falls out of a plane, whatever it might be. And this is entrenched in us as well. But like, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter if you look at yourself, it doesn't matter if you tell the truth, it all comes to nothing anyway. Again, saying this is also playing the victim. It's like, there's no point. Okay, then don't complain, basically. If there's no point, then don't complain about your life. To be harsh,
Please.
to be harsh. Um, I will say that as well, the conception gives this kind of a light, like an overall light, under which you can look at your own dark shit, basically. Because for us, it's just the dark shit, and that's the end of the world, basically. But the conception provides this overall light, and it provides hope that maybe we were all wrong. How strange it seems to admit it in such a way where it seems so clear. Maybe we were all wrong. Maybe this world is not actually as it should be. Yeah, it turns out to be that's the case, actually.
Yeah, no, and I think again, it's important that we recognize that there is it's not just an individual crisis, right? It is systemic, it's planet wide, but things are still going, right? It's not how many times people have said this is the end of the world. How many times these particular apocalyptic sects have said, okay, the world's going to end on Friday, December 25th
Oh
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
And
yeah.
this keep going. Um, and then but you see also the way that people can easily be molded and melded into type of cult like thinking, even people with
Mm-hmm.
very high levels of success, right? There's one, I forget, Nvidia, whatever that was. People are getting branded. All these like high powered, primarily women, executives, really very at the peak of success. Yet they're able to be just coded and corralled and manipulated and really into very harmful, abusive circumstances because they cannot reflect on this, right? And so it's kind of like people, oh, I have this problem, that problem. Well, you're doing, maybe you do some kind of empowerment. You do, you get into involved in some type of religion. Maybe you develop some new relationships. You do all this stuff. You're just changing the wallpaper. You're changing the wallpaper and the furniture, yet the basic structure is still there. Unless you
Yeah.
look at the basic structure and with but just to deposit that within this context of objective reality, I think one of the things is to recognize, wait, you're here, you have a very important role to play in this. You're not just, you're not a piece of shit. Fundamentally, you may be acting like this, and the courage to recognize that is going to open up a whole new range of possibilities in your life, to go beyond that. So I think that that's important. And I think one last thing I'll say is that I think a lot of people may see the language in the CSS and these various books. It's not, it doesn't, it's not holding your hand. You know what I mean?
No.
It's gonna saying, wake up. Here it is. If you can't handle it, then either, then okay, then it's not for you. We don't, you know what I mean? As I mentioned, like the music, sitar music, you don't push it. People have to come to this because they want something
Yes.
greater, something richer, something more dynamic. And so, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you want to make it accessible and present it so then it can also, gain more, people that are involved, right? So
Yeah. Yes. Basically, this information is for people who are seeking, as you said, people who are looking to change themselves, to understand the world, and then maybe to change the world as well. Maybe not initially. Maybe they don't have this thought initially, but everyone, most people who are seeking have the wish to change themselves because they feel bad, you know, and they're looking for answers. So this information is for people who are looking for answers. It doesn't need to be sold to anyone. It doesn't need to be. No one needs to be. We don't need to convince anyone of it. It speaks for itself, and it speaks in a language which is respectful to you as a thinking person. It doesn't try to convince you. It doesn't try to tug on your emotions. It doesn't try to send you into spiritual euphoria. It's not that kind of system of knowledge at all. Yes, it's for people who really want to rethink their worldview and to look at life differently and change things. Putting it very simply, that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, exactly. That's for basically for people who are seeking and who are sick and tired, basically, of some problems which they fail to solve. That's basically the main thing. And then they might have tried many things in their lives, even the idea that everything is illusion, even that. But then they go on searching, go on
Hmm.
seeking for something new, for something which can really help.
it's always much easier to step into a pre-existing system that provides beliefs. And one of the things that actually appealed to me with this is that I've been very much interested in philosophy, but I went down a long foray into Buddhism or things related to Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, stuff like that. And so you have this fundamental, you get this, the highest teachings, highest meditation. Basically, you just you can't think. You go beyond thought. Your thoughts are blocking you, right? Your thoughts are blocking you. Your mind is emptiness. You are emptiness. You don't exist, right? You're just, they're called the samskaras, these sort of aggregate forms, just sort of agglomerate, and then maybe you're reincarnated. Somehow something's holding this together, but behind it, there's nothing there. It's just
Hmm.
emptiness, right? And some people find that liberating, but actually, is that really true in your own experience? B, what is this logically? Okay, sometimes maybe you have to go beyond limited logical conceptions, but is this belief system or this going into this and just trying to meditate, clear the mind of thoughts? Well, again, you get into these feedback loops, right? These are feedback loops. These are, people, I think a lot of what happens, as I mentioned, just changing the wallpaper while you remain the same. It's very easy to, imagination is one of the great, gifts that we have, but also one of the most dangerous things, right? To live in this imagined world that, you know what I mean? If you lose that connection with objective reality, imagination becomes very, very dangerous. In that way, you imagine, oh, I'm a great saint. I'm enlightened. I'm
Hmm.
so this, that, and this world is illusion. Well, okay, go ahead and, get caught in a, earthquake and then tell me this is an illusion, right? Or, I mean, was that
Or
what
a
I'm saying?
traffic jam.
Traffic jam. Well, that's, you see
Yeah.
people like, at least in you should be able to handle all. Well, I was leading up to this point is that a really I think a very powerful thing about this the CSS is that it takes you have the intellect, right? Your intellect is there. You have language, right? You have thought. Now, of course, thought is doesn't mean thought is evil or this or that. No, I mean, thought is very important, but then how is thought used? How are you thinking? How is your mind, your consciousness structured? Do you even know what your consciousness is? What the structures are, what the capacities are, what the particular delimitations are, right? But you can start from your day to day, right now, what you're doing right now, what's around you by recognizing it.
Mhm.
And I think that's very important. Is that also, yes, you can get into these incredible ecstatic spiritual states. You're one with the universe, whatever. You're still going to come back to this life that you're in and you're still here. So
Yeah.
why not work from the ground up, and not try to jump into these states that maybe you'll get some ecstatic state. Maybe it's going to fry out your nervous system because you're not able to take in all that energy. So, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I remember before I came across the conception, before Andre and I met, I started meditating. I meditated for some time, and I realized I sat down one day and I just asked myself, "What am I doing here?" And basically, I realized I'm running away from the thoughts that come to me. Every time a thought comes to me, I think, "Oh, I'm not supposed to have that thought. Oh, I'm not supposed to think that. I'm not supposed to have that thought," and it just goes in this loop. And at the end of the day, what am I doing here? What am I really doing here? I'm trying to what? Stop all my thoughts? Why? Because I'm going to act better? It seemed crazy to me when I just looked at it objectively like that. And we have this kind of, yeah, again, we have this kind of mythologization of what the unconscious is. And we all want to, when I say we all, again, I mean just, culturally, stereotypically speaking. Yeah, we all want to kind of write down our dreams and, go into this dream world. And again, why? Because we want to run away from this world because we don't like this world. And this is the world that we live in, which we actually, as well as our ancestors, created. So coming across the conception, there's a demythologization of the unconscious. And I can give it very briefly, basically. We have these like almost magical words, making the unconscious conscious. Right? You hear spiritual gurus talking about it, and it sounds like ooh, up in the sky. But basically, it's like this: uh, we as people generally we run on our unconscious automatisms. You can think about it like this: when the last time that you got angry, did you decide to get angry? Did you think, oh, I'm going to get angry now? No, this didn't happen like that. An emotion arose, you reacted to this emotion, and then you got angry. What is this emotion communicating? This emotion is communicating your unconscious perception of the world and your unconscious algorithm, basically like the program that you have about how to act in these situations. It's all that's unconscious. So making the unconscious conscious is going home and asking yourself, why did I get angry? Oh, it's because of this. It's because I react like that. Why do I react like that? Oh, I react like that because of this happened to me when I was a bit younger and I created this strategy to survive. Oh, that's making the unconscious conscious. That's demythologizing it, and that's being able to take that tool and then live in the world, as opposed to levitating up into the mountains where you are of no use to anyone. Uh, and another thing, just a small little thing at the end of that, is that those who run away into the mountains, the objective process that's going on now in the world of globalization, some corporation's going to come and cut down that forest. And then you're going to have to face the fact of what we are, as a culture.
Yeah. Yeah, I would also add something about all of this. So first of all, I would add this fact of the word meditation itself, because people might forget that meditare in Latin means to think, and just the depth of the meditation is measured by the measure of concentration. That's the main thing. So but you might concentrate in something on something just every day. doing something trivial, let's say. So I don't know, read a book or even cleaning your house. It might be the
Hmm.
case where you concentrate a lot, you know, but it's the same in meditation. But no, you have to fly in the sky. So, but this is okay. This is one thing. The other thing is that uh, if you fly somewhere in the sky, that's fine. But you have to understand where exactly you fly. That's another topic. The other thing is that you have to understand the standards of the objective goodness and objective badness. That's a very important thing because if you uh, cannot distinguish those things, then you might be caught up by something which you do not understand actually. That's another thing. This is the danger of all that. So, because if you understand it well, you can handle things. You can handle massive, you might be able to handle massive arrays of information where you fly. Uh, Another thing is that usually in all those systems, the word God is uttered in some other meaning, not in the meaning that he is objectively. But objectively is the highest reality, is the highest governance. You might name it in any word, as for example in the Arabic they have 99 words of Allah, and they describe his objective qualities. So the point is, you might even make up even 1,000 words describing him. But the point is that he is objective and he governs the world, and he supports people in the objective goodness and does not support in the objective badness. Uh, so about the emptiness, that's not liberation whatsoever at all, because that's basically liberation of your brain. That's maybe the maximum that you might achieve, the liberation of your brain. But it's not the main objective, right? To be brainless. So the point is that um, when people, mm, that's again about the fundamentals of the worldview of man, right? Um, if you understand it correctly, you get the idea that the material world and this sky where people like to fly in the meditations, right, is the same. It's one and the same thing. And if you are here, that means that you at the same time are there as well. But not, of course, this is, you have to measure this state. So the point is that you generate thoughts every second, which means that you're already a part, objectively a part of the sky where you like to fly. So, and then the point is that you know, uh, if we have a result, that means that we have a goal, right? So if the result is, an end result is that we are people born in bodies, in material bodies, right? Uh, we do not remember our previous lives, and that's how God created us. Because if He wanted us to remember the previous lives, we would have been born like that, right? So that's another topic. So and then and we live in the material world, right? So that's the ready result. We have to deal with this. We don't have to fly, try to escape this world, because this world we are placed here, not by ourselves, and that means that we have to uh, understand why. What is the main reason that we live? Basically, we have to understand these things, and these things uh, it's impossible to understand while you you know, undistinguishably fly somewhere in the sky in meditations.
Well, that's one thing. Like there's mindfulness, right? So this is always being pushed. Oh, do mindfulness, mindfulness, and so it is certainly there is a misunderstanding as to what thought is, but then the thought, um, just to say, I mean, there's the sort of inner discourse, which is talking to yourself, which activates the speech apparatus, right? Your tongue. Then you know what I mean. You feel in your tongue. You're literally talking to yourself. People, you know what I mean. And this can um, overtake a the objective information coming in, right? So it's a lower gradient of thought, actually. You know what I mean? It can be. I think it's useful, say, in emergency circumstances, right? If you need to really pull together some kind of dangerous thing. But I think a lot of people live in this inner dialogue. They're talking to themselves. They're taking other people's voices and having conversations. Most of this is outside the threshold of consciousness, even though it's there. I mean, you can. It's not that deep outside of consciousness, but you're not aware of it, right? Because it lets you be on the surface. So in that kind of a state, and then sitting and saying, okay, I'm going to, become totally calm and go beyond thoughts. What usually happens is that you either, run into this, a lot of what people assume ecstasy to be or whatever is you get the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems going at the same time, the arousal and rest, boom, and you create a clash, boom, and then there's a shutdown. I feel so calm now.
Mm.
Because you just overloaded your system, and then you get this feeling of rest, right? You get this feeling of peace because so that's not the way to go, right? Not that, so there are valuable things. I think if meditation understood as what it is defined in the cultures of origin, right? When you're using the word meditations, Marcus Aurelius, these are deep forms of contemplation and thought. And then I
Mm.
think people have also forgotten that thought itself can have incredible depth and richness. It's not that you have to, vanquish thought and thought is bad, but it's that you're not present to what's actually occurring. And it's very easy to take this will make me feel better. And in fact, it becomes you can literally be, I mean, you can totally delude yourself. You can actually have very destructive impacts on your entire life. And at the same time, having this illusion that you're becoming some wonderful enlightened being. But
Yeah.
if nonetheless, you're not doing anything in the world. You think that now, obviously you change your individual self, you will have impact in the world. Right. But I think it's important to recognize that something is a phenomena. Is it just because, okay, even this is this very famous, this whole religious system is telling me this is what it is. Okay. Well, let me try to see. At least you have that. You can give yourself that. You don't need to you don't need to follow what others are telling you. This is your own consciousness, not someone else's, right? So you can at least start with that. But anyways, just saying that all these things, but it doesn't have to be bad if you learn like any type of training, right? So to be able to do one pointed concentration, just keep your mind completely focused on one thing at one time, and just be able to do that. Hold that in your mind. So that's a very valuable skill to develop, right? Also to be completely expansive, to allow everything that's happening to happen with total clear open awareness and consciousness without it's sort of almost opening up to this vast objectiveness, right? This is also a very valuable thing to be able to do. I think most people can't do that. But what I'm saying, these are important skill sets potentially, but if they're extirpated, if they're pulled out of an original context, they're relocated, say, in the Western context, right? What affect the people with very different lives? You know what I mean? Like, say, for example, in Tibetan, there is no word for self doubt, low self esteem, whatever. There's a huge problem, self hatred, this, that. People have all these issues. There's not even a word for it in there. in their language, right? So if you know what I mean? So you don't want to apply something. There's all kinds of different tools and methods. Don't apply a tool and method that's not appropriate for your circumstances, and especially not for the actual world you live in, and the parameters of the consciousness that you have been brought up, conceptually and through training.
Yeah, I would say that meditation can be good, yeah, and it can be bad. If we just split it into these two things, of course, there are many gray areas. Um, it's not useful if it's used to run away, putting it very simply. It can be useful if we go from the position that there is there is a God. God created this creation. We are put here. We have certain objectives which we are able to realize. We're able to think about and cognize what they are, and we're able to build our lives in the stream of these objectives. Then, if we sit down and meditate and we stop running away from our emotions, the emotions that we don't like, and we start to look at these emotions like our mission, uh, as our part in the overall noosphere, we can say, as in the overall cloud of. You were talking earlier about basically about noises. All of us experience a great deal of stress in our culture in different forms, and we're all trying to deal with it in different ways. Most of the time, the prescribed way is to run away from it in different ways. However, if we accept this stress and we accept our part of this noise, which are these voices, which are whatever these emotions that we don't like, as our destiny, it becomes a different thing. It becomes part of our path to then address these emotions and figure out where they're coming from and how they're affecting our lives, and admitting the truth of them, the absolute truth of them, what they mean about us. This is a very difficult part. What do these emotions actually mean about us as people? And then it becomes our work. It becomes like a sacred job for us. And in this case, meditation can be a very useful thing because we are living in the world and we are taking our perceptions of it through our emotions, usually sending up messages to our consciousnesses on how to react, how to feel, how to think, and then how to act consequently, and changing it in order to first of all ourselves have a better life, and then consequently make not make but create the conditions for others to also have a good life, help them in that.
Yeah, I would also add something that whatever people do, they have to first ask themselves why. What are the objectives? If I meditate, why? What are the objectives for my meditation today? So if and any that how to say there shouldn't be any thing in life, that that should work as something sacred by itself. It all needs to work as a tool for something bigger, for something else. So if your particular predestination can be achieved without any meditation, you do not meditate. That's it. If your predestination cannot be achieved without any meditation, you meditate. But again, even in this case, as a tool, not as a object of idealization. Oh, meditation. This by itself is good. Why do you meditate? I don't know. I just fly, feel good. No, this is
Mm.
if it's like that, if it's the case, then something is wrong.
Well, no, great point. So, um, so this is our sort of our first little foray into this, and we did sort of focus a little bit more on, you could say, psychological aspects and some other things. But I think primarily, yeah, it's this accepting responsibility and then looking And I think this integration of changing your life as it stands in arising current conditions, change those conditions, change your reaction to the conditions, change how you react to situations. Don't, I guess you could say there is, you don't need to be, you can have a negative emotion. You are not that negative emotion. You're not these negative patterns. Don't identify with them, but see, these are operating in me. I don't want this. I want to change it. Okay. You move forward, right? But I think, anyways, so, but just to reiterate, so we're looking at a really a fundamental, and one aspect, of course, which I think is very important, is this psychological aspect, right? You can't just there's a strong, you could say, a scientific overlay, right? The sense of objectivity. I know she's probably not listening, but I spoke to a scientist the last weekend. I had a concert, but I talked to her about what she's doing, and she's trying to show the origin of life, how it happened, still holding on to the theory of evolution, right? Still holding on to this idea that it's self-organizing systems, just happens by itself. There's no, right? There's no creator. It's and just which is interesting. And she said, well, I think it's consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Well, okay, but as you're saying, there has to be a material carrier for that consciousness, right? So we can't just split this thing. But just seeing, and even someone like that, though, they're looking, some, involved in, whatever, at a university, et cetera, involved in things that, but not being able just to say this still is this random occurrence. Life and the whole universe just came out of these random collection of particles through, but then what's organizing? Who's the self-organizing system? Yeah. Why is the system self-organized? Right. So anyways, so it gets this sort of this, just touching on this psychological aspect. But again, this is usually absent, right? Or else if it's there, it becomes extremely over mystified or extremely complicated, right? I think Freud is another. So I'm not a big fan of Darwin or Freud. It doesn't mean that I say the Earth was created. I've had people. I said I don't buy the theory of evolution because it doesn't hold, not in terms of humans evolving and developing, right, and stuff like that, but in terms of just this randomness, and then choom, right? This is just random, and everything just happened randomly, and we can't explain it, but we just know it did, and we're still, the most intelligent beings in the universe with no root or ground, right? But anyway, so this aspect that whatever knowledge form or system, whether you're looking at the entire restructuring of the processes of governance of the international, because essentially we're looking at international relations and how to restructure and change what is occurring in the world, right? This needs to be changed. This particular momentum is really, it's getting very close to pushing us off the precipice, so I think it's incumbent upon everybody to say, wait, let me figure this out. At least, even if it goes off the precipice, let me be able to fully manifest as myself, to enjoy life, to try to experience real happiness and maybe make a contribution, right? But what I'm saying is that, we are at such a point. So these world leaders, I'm not trying to bash the old guy, the orange guy, the orange man. We all know who the orange man is, right? So you have to watch things on YouTube. You get the AI algorithm, Orange man. I mean, he's living in the plague. He's still in the preschool. He's still in the playground. He's still in high school. He's still in this ape level, blustering, right? I mean, literally, I hate to say it, even though this huge level of power, yet looks like a big portion of your being is, you haven't, it's like, I want this toy. You look at toddlers fighting. That's the same, in my estimation, the same behavioral, output, right? You know what I mean? And you think you're going to grow over that. You're going to get over that. No, well, now we're looking at, deaths of millions of people or whatever's going to happen. Hopefully it's not going to happen, right? You can see, but these people that are behind him or that are interlocked with him and they just have momentum, they will not stop. Right? It's like we're just going to keep going. We don't care what the results are. We're just going to keep pushing. You know what I mean? And so that was sort of a more extended commentary. But anyways, the psychological aspect is so fundamental, taking away the complexity with Freud, right? How many parts? Ego, superego, id, this, that, and this whole thing. Instead of saying we either that sort of Buddhist thing, it's all illusion, you don't really exist, this is all just this weird collection of random atoms, or the thing of you're born in original sin, you're a sinner, you're evil, you have to feel guilty your whole life, or else you're just an animal, and the highest level you can just fulfill all of your drives, right? I mean, this is a big thing in the 70s, 1960s, 1970s in the United States. The whole problem with culture is that people are sexually repressed. They're not able to fulfill their sexual desires, and the more elaborately they can fulfill their sexual needs and desires, then the better. The whole world is just going to be great, and everyone's going to be great because they're not repressed sexually. That's from Freud, right? But in a sense, how are you different from a toddler or a bunny rabbit, a rabbit copulating? You know what I mean? So I'll leave it there. But I think that, again, this ties into the entire, also very practical and pragmatic. But this is an urgency that you are called, I think, incumbent to, first of all, start with yourself, but also at the same time be able to start to decode this bigger picture and maybe push things in a different direction.
Yeah, I would say also something else for people to maybe think. As you said, right? In Buddhism, you say everything is illusion. So let's go and meditate till the rest of our lives. Or the other guys who say, I know we are all guilty the whole life, so let's feel like that, right? Or something else. So just to think like that, if there is a group of people who govern the world, they are extra cultural beings, right? They do not identify themselves with any country or any genetics, whatever. So, right, they are them. So, and then imagine the situation where they have their own goals, right? Their own set of objectives, and they in this set of objectives, right? Just imagine those people who meditate their whole lives, somewhere in the woods, or those people who feel guilt the whole life. They work for what? Do they fit? Do they, try to stop these guys, or they basically work for them guys, for those guys who have this their own objectives, and they have a greater measure of understanding things. So that's a very important thing, just to ponder on
Yes.
what
Sorry,
those
sorry, sorry.
meditations work for. If you just
I
sit
will.
in the
I'll.
woods, yeah,
So I'll just add as well. Sorry about that. I'll just add quickly. It ties into what Andre is saying and what you said as well. So if you were talking about what Freud kind of not himself implanted, but through his work, it was quite well entrenched that we are instinctual beings. We are animals. We all reject this at our core. It doesn't fit with us, but we just don't have something to object with. We don't have any kind of fundamental grounds to object with. In this system of information, it's very clearly outlined, very well outlined. And when I say it, it will resonate with people. We have an animal principle. We do have instincts. These instincts do exist. There's no questions about it. We do all have the instinct of survival. We do have the instinct of procreation, and we do have the instinct of. There is also a certain hierarchical instinct. All these instincts are also. They also have their own purpose consonants. So they do have their reason to exist in us as programs. Because we come into being and we need to survive, and we don't need to think about whether to run away from a lion or not. It should be automatic. If we see a lion, we can't think, oh, maybe today I'll see what happens. No, you got to run, because as a species, the first task that we have as a species is to survive. So, but this is the animal principle. Now, then we have the divine principle. We have the godly principle. This is once we've survived, once we've mastered our environment, which is also in our nature to do, we then get to sit down and cognize and think and communicate and understand the universe in which we live. This is not inherent in monkeys. This is not inherent in rabbits. This is not inherent in these creatures. These creatures are born already full-fledged as these creatures, and they have no potential embedded in them from above to move beyond these programs. So a monkey is going to be a monkey, and you can't blame him for that. If you go into a chimpanzee territory, you can't say, "Hey, stop being so dominant over that guy. Let him have a chance." No, they will not survive if that works. But for us, we have the capacity to sit back and to look at ourselves and to recognize what we are governed by, to recognize the fact that we are governed by instincts, which Freud recognized. However, he didn't come to this, that we can reflect on that, and then we can project that into the future. We can say, if we continue to act on the basis of purely instincts, then we're going to end up having a big war, and we're going to end up in a big nuclear war. But the fact that we have this capacity already should let people think, who gave us this capacity? Why do we have this capacity to be able to do this and then choose something else? Why do we have this choice, right? Do we have this choice so we cannot make it? Or do we have this choice so we can make it? And this already brings a person in front of the need to think about God and to think about the creator and creation and why we are here. So I would just add that as well.
No, that's a great point. And even there's a lot of avoidance, right, of saying God, right? People, you say that,
Yes.
especially in the West, people are like, oh, no, or else they're in a very narrowly defined view, right, of that. But in one level, you could say you can find a sense of that. It's a lot of it's not that mysterious, right? It's available if you are if you're willing to be present and to be in honesty, with what's happening. But um, anyways, so we'll go ahead and this was a great introduction, and we'll go into we'll continue this in the not so distant future and get into very specific details of looking at everything from the entire architecture of world history, right, and all these different levels of power and how this conceptual power within the CSS, they're talking about going back to the Egyptian priesthood, how this was formulated, and we have this radical rethinking of the configuration, matter, energy, space, and time, right? Matter, information, measure. These are fascinating topics, and on, right? There's so many, and significantly general theory of governance also, and many different important aspects of this whole this I say a sort of a corpus of literature, right, or an integrative way to offer a new potential direction. I think for anybody who connects with this has a potential to integrate it, to also to find their own way through it and come up. You can maybe modify this for your life. I mean, everybody has some unique aspects, right? It's not like plug and play. In your circumstances, right? So I think that that's also very important. Is that you're able to concretely see that, okay, this is working, this isn't working, okay, but then you don't need to be so stressed about things. Life is an experiment. You're at least when you start to guide yourself and connect with the creator and just that's a valuable use of thought, right? Just bring your thoughts back to that. How can I approach this in the best way? How can I generate the best outcome? How can I receive guidance? This is a good way to use your thought process, right? Instead of worrying this or that, if your thought is not productive to creating a solution, then focus on that and see what happens, right? So, anyways, guys, it's just been amazing, and so we have Cyan and Andre, and so why don't the last however much you want. You can make some closing statements and invite everybody. I'll put the links here for the fantastic Russian View YouTube channel, as well as the links to the literature on the other website. But go ahead and take as much time as you'd like, and we'll go ahead. We'll start with Andre. Just you can go ahead and your concluding remarks or whatever you'd like to, whatever points you'd like to share.
I would like to say that sometimes people might think that the problems they have in their psyches are not solvable, and they, this is how things go and so on. But the problem is, no. Good news say no, yeah, they are solvable, and you can do that, especially with the help of the uh, hierarchically highest in the all-encompassing governance in terms of the sufficiently general theory of governance, as we say about God, right? If you don't like the religious term God, whatever, the all-encompassing hierarchically highest governance, if you prefer that. So with the help of this governance, you can do something which is impossible, as well as become truly happy and become not only truly happy, but become also stably happy. This is something really amazing for many people, I believe. This is the first thing I would say. The other thing I would say, never be afraid to look at the truth as it is. Nothing scary is there. There is the life, real life, not the sky somewhere in meditation, but there is the real life. And even from that, you can cognize the world much deeper than in any sky flying. That's the that's basically from where you might understand your predestination. Because many people might, and they really would like to know why they live, wherever they do, even if they think that they don't need this, all this is for some freaks or whatever. But anyway, somewhere deeply, they all need to know why. They all have questions why, even though unasked. But still, they have this question why, and that's basically it.
Thank you, Andre. Appreciate that, and there's some great points there, and that's one of the great things with the CSS material is it um, information. There is some no matter what it is, whatever level of energy or whatever is coming in, at least you can find a way to understand what is actually happening. And if you're afraid of that, then you can't find that, right? And what's really terrifying is not reality. What's terrifying is being lost in the illusory, schizophrenic, mind traps and minefields, even social media. That's frightening, but not reality. Reality is never frightening ultimately. Okay, Cyan, go ahead. Your final thoughts.
Yes, so I will just say that I would like to recommend a book on our site which touches all the themes that we spoke about today, and which touches on the themes in the way that we've spoken about them, not in the same language, but in the same order of priority. So this book is called The Last Instance, or What a Human Should Be in the Third Millennium, and it really very, very nicely outlines the principal problems being worldview. And then later on, in the book, there's the second part of the first part of the book is information, useful information about worldview first of all, and then it goes on to talk about what is the psyche. It talks about different aspects of the psyche. It gives a very clear and strict, measured definition of the psyche. It talks about God. It talks about all these aspects, and then, which is very important, it goes on to a section which talks about what to do. And this what to do section begins with a section called work on oneself. So if any listeners would like to have a look, this is the first book that I would recommend personally, um, and it will bring them into more depth about what we were talking about, exactly what we're talking about today. That the first problem is the worldview of people. This worldview includes their relationship with God, whether or not they are conscious of this. And again, this word God, we have a lot of stereotypes surrounding this word, which we also have to we have to figure this out. We have to figure out what these stereotypes are, because these stereotypes actually hold us back from communicating with whatever is the creator of what is created. And so, as I was saying, yes, the worldview includes that, and then it talks about work on oneself. So this is, I would say, very useful. And maybe the last thing I would say is that I personally, this information, as well as, yes, this information has helped to change my life completely. And I've been able to understand a lot of the problems of the culture from which I came. So I can highly recommend, as one who has gone through this, that for those who are seeking answers to deep questions, and everyone is really seeking, anyone who's in any depression is actually seeking, whether consciously or unconsciously, I would highly recommend picking up a book and starting. And that's what I want to say.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and that's absolutely correct. Is that when you shift out of this, you don't want to make a fetishization of your problems. I see this a lot, right? Especially in the West. Maybe not so much in Russia, but oh, I have this. I have adult anxiety disorder. Or I'm afraid of crowds. I'm afraid of this, or I was traumatized by this person, or I just get angry. I can't help it. Whatever it may be. These are all excuses from taking actually what can be a great journey, right? You don't need what is the actual greatest potential you can reach that maybe your greatest potential is you're a farmer and you grow the best green beans in the world, but maybe if that's your actual direction, then you're going to find absolute joy in that. And as
Mm.
long as you're connected. So you don't but to find this sense of purpose and meaning, because I'll say one last thing is that, within our cultural systems, right? Maybe you have some, enclosed small communities that existed and maybe still exist where you can really go to the root of what's available in that culture. They will guide you back, right? They will, if you fall off the deep end, they will psychically heal you. They'll, gather you. It's a very, holistic, you know, um, uh, community living on the highest principles. I don't think we really have that, not in America. I don't know. Maybe in Russia, maybe not. But you know what I mean. You can't necessarily go towards what's given to you and those authorities that are presented right in that. Because I think a lot of these authorities, they're not happy. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, to a certain extent, they do, right? But if you scratch the surface, you see, well, if you can't regulate your emotions, if you're this level of, I know, people I met personally, are very famous. I won't mention their names, in music or whatever. And they still have these temper tantrums and destroy the, I'm going to tear this room down. I'm going to throw the chairs out the window. Why? Because I can. How much money you have, what you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Don't worry about, and one thing, you don't need to worry about money. What you need will come to you. I think as
Mm.
necessary. So
Mm.
it takes away, I think, by engaging with these materials, at least on the self development way, it takes away some of the pressure of life. And you can step back a little bit and say, okay, let's try another approach. Right. And then, so you don't need to be so all consumed and worried and this and that, but yet you have to face what is actually there. Right. And I think that's the first stage. And then things that you thought were impossible, that even maybe this is, how did this happen? Is it even technically possible based on, well, it worked. Why? Because then you say, oh, okay, that's why. You keep very clear with, these things. But anyways, yeah. So we'll continue. We'll see. Probably go, and I definitely recommend that the book you mentioned, and some of the other things are maybe a little bit dense to get started with. We'll maybe talk about like Dead Water, which is much more sort of complicated tome, which is the initial work. But yeah, so I mean, and everybody basically like no matter what you're doing, don't you want to be happy and fulfilled, right? And also have the greatest possible positive impact on the world, and be able to make changes in the world at the same time without, just exploding. There's a lot of people that do, work, in the world, charity, and they're just everything is a projection, right? They actually they still are lost in themselves, right? And
Mhm.
so even though it's terrifying to recognize, wait, we don't really have who's the actual authority on psychology now in our world. Who do you trust? What therapy system do you follow? What do you do? Who's the who's in charge of the science? Who's in charge of the genetic modification? Who's in charge of nanotechnology? Who's in charge of artificial intelligence? Who's in is there anybody at the helm? Right? You know what I mean? So it's important, I think, that each one of us starts to move into this, and I think with the potential, you can each individual can potentially make a tremendous difference, and I think that's why we're at this very. This is a time of it's a crucible in a certain way, right? But I think if you can get through this pathway, this narrow passage, it's potentially just going to be an amazing world. Go ahead. You
Yes.
guys can respond to that.
I'll just say one small thing about all the fields, psychology, as you were saying, who's at the helm, science, all these things. Um, Another very, very useful, to use a very useful aspect of the system of knowledge is that it gives you the worldview philosophical tools by which you can connect all of these fields of knowledge and activity, because for us they seem to be all separated and a huge amount of facts. Science has 1,000 textbooks that you have to learn, all these formulas and so on. Psychology has 3,000 models of the personality, and I can go on and on and on and on. But the beauty of the system is that it gives you the roots, the fundamental worldview prism through which to look at each field of activity from the basis, from which you can then delve into these activities with I wouldn't say confidence, but I would say in a way that in which you connect everything in life, in which everything is connected and not separate. So it already it takes away that intimidation, because many people have the intimidation. Oh, I can't learn everything. You don't have to learn everything. First of all, you only have to learn what is within your uh, destiny, and you can cognize what that destiny is by yourself. Second of all, you don't have to learn all the facts. Usually we think about this as facts. So it always goes back to the question of the original worldview, the prism through which you look at the world. And it can be summarized as either the world is one and holistic, everything is connected, interconnected, or everything is sporadic, disconnected, can change at any moment. And it's a bunch of random facts. So the first worldview here is expanded on at length in these books, and it allows the reader to really create this in themselves, to then go out into the world and cognize it and think and find, actually ultimately to help themselves find their own happiness at the end of the day, as we were talking about.
Absolutely. And just one of my principles, which I came to before, even seeing the CSS, is avoid do not create unnecessary suffering, right? So sometimes there's necessary suffering, right? You have to pass through certain trials and things, but don't create anything unnecessary if you can, right?
Mhm.
Avoid that. There's no reason to engage in that. And then instead of, you know, it's just that sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm right now, I don't know who I am. I'm just drifting through life. I'm really confused. But well, that's a great starting off point. At least you recognize where you are, right? So
Yeah.
applying these things and moving then moving forward. So you don't, that's a, and say, well, this is really exciting. I have a chance to, instead of, you know what I mean? This is, I think, a great thing to add is that you have, and to be able to ascertain from what is necessary from a particular field. You don't have to master everything, but master what you need to. And the unconscious mind is actually great, right? You can walk, you can drive, you can do many, many things totally unconsciously. But how do you optimize that, right? And that's another very important thing, right? Optimizing that and just knowing that, the framing structures of consciousness, how to be in a particular balance mode for the particular activity you're undertaking, right? And things like this. So it gives flexibility, fluidity, right? And in a certain way, you have hope without artificial beliefs. Without you looking at objective reality. All right, Andrew, do you want to say one last, or Andre, you want to say one last thing? And if not, I just want to thank the Russian View team for appearing here on this show. And I really encourage everybody. I'll have the links below with the books linked and the YouTube videos. So I encourage everybody to step into this, and we will continue this elaboration and discussion as we move forward. But Andre, do you want to say any last thoughts there?
Basically, no. I think I've said everything, at least for this time.
Coded in music, media, and memory. Wonderful.
All
right. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much. And into the resonant state. Join me as we explore the secrets of sound,
Take care.
mind control, consciousness,
Thank you.
and the frequencies that shape your world.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much for inviting us.
Subscribe
It's been
now.
a great conversation.
Tune your perception. Excellent.